I'm Al McFarlane. Welcome to the Monday edition of Conversations with Al McFarlane. Today is May 23rd, 2022. A couple of days away from everybody's attention being focused again on George Floyd. I think 25th marks the 2-year anniversary of George Floyd. In the course of today's conversation, I'm going to ask all of my guests and friends who are here to take a minute and to give thoughts, reflections on what the tragedy of the murder of George Floyd has meant to each of us personally, and how we assemble the information, the experience, the knowledge, the pain into the creation of the future that we are committed to building for ourselves and our families and our neighborhoods. I'm pleased today to welcome once again my colleagues and friends, co-conspirators, Diana Hawkins and Dee Phillips, the partners over at the Hawthorne Neighborhood Council. Dee and Diana, thank you both for helping organize this Monday event. And I so treasure the relationship we have with the Hawthorne Huddle once a month and with the North Side Urban Coalition focusing on opioid and other drug and substance abuse prevention and awareness in our community. We're doing a lot of great work, and I think that our job is simply to continue on that vein. I want to acknowledge my writing partner, Brenda Lau Gray. She's joining us from New Mexico, where she works and reports on things that we do during this program every day. And a special thanks to my brother Greg McFarlane. I call him Amon Greg McFarlane, and I tell him that he reminds me of the gods of antiquity, the ones that created a cosmogony that described the workings of the universe, that brought agriculture and science and health and healing and art and culture, mathematics into the world. So there's something deep in his spirit that reminds me of the regenerative power that is in health and in healing. He's doing that kind of work in his business. The business is called New Heights Sober House. Well, our principal guest today is Brother Randy Washington. And Randy Washington is the program director at Freedomworks in North Minneapolis. Freedomworks is presented as Freedomworks with the title or mission of reconciling to God, family, and community. And I'll just read briefly introducing Randy Washington. From his website, it says Randy has joined Freedomworks after returning to Minnesota, where he, from Wisconsin, where he resided with his wife and 3 children over the past 15 years. And he's worked with at-risk populations throughout his entire life and ministry in a variety of direct care and management capacities, impacting populations in need of reentry and aftercare service. So that sets the tone for today's conversation. Brother Randy Washington, good afternoon. Good to see you. How you doing, man?
I am well and delighted to be here with you all on the program.
Well, like I said before we started, this program, unscripted, informal, friendly, and with the mission of elevating us and our ideas, our stories, and us as solution providers, not as the problem exclusively. So with that, let me ask you to take just a few minutes and go through FreedomWorks 101. What's the basics? What do people need to know about what this organization is, what its mission and vision are, and how it operates in community?
Great, thank you. I'll say first of all, excuse me. I know on my end experienced a little bit of lag, and so hopefully that will be kind of ironed out with a stable internet connection on my end. FreedomWorks got started based on an observed need. There was a gentleman by the name of Fred Peterson who, with a few of his friends, were going inside of Lionel Lakes Correctional Facility and connecting with, at that time, Interchange Freedom Initiative. It is now called the Academy. And they were running a community Bible study meeting and engaging in just some life on life, very real, very powerful relationships with some of the participants that were in that IFI program. One of the things that Fred observed at that time was there would be an individual who, in that environment, so free of the normal stress and drama of life, they would make huge personal gains, huge spiritual gains, be leaders in that community. And there would become times where it was time for them to transition from the medium facility there at Lionel Lakes, and they would transition home. And it was a great time of celebration, a great time of bright future and encouragement. And one of the observations and the need that kind of surfaced was, three months later, that same individual who left out so strong, so vibrant, so optimistic, he would be seen walking from the SHU, the secure housing unit, back to K2. That's the pod where those men lived. And the question was, what happened in that time? And the short answer to that is the birthing of the mission of Freedomworks, and that is that individuals who are in a place of, again, recovering from trauma and wanting to really put their best foot forward in rebuilding their lives, we can't do that by ourselves. Whether you're male, it really does take some intentional engagement, and it takes some purposeful structure and activity in order to help people make that transition in a healthy way, and in a way that lends itself to better results. And so, FreedomWorks was birthed there. Our mission statement, again, reconciling first of all to God. So I've embraced it. I'm a Christ follower, and so most of the individuals who I come in contact with, we are mission minded in recognizing that if we don't have our spiritual lives in order, then we are open to all kinds of other areas of instability, if you will. I think the scripture says it best, which says, what does it profit a man to gain this whole world, but to lose their soul? So that's the first foundation, reconciling to God, then reconciling to family. There's so much damage that's done when making unhealthy choices. And family is the first place where that repair that needs to happen. And it's that first place of most important ongoing nurture that comes from. And then the final piece of the mission is to reconcile to community. And the community is, again, that old adage, who is my neighbor? And there's a lot of damage that has been done when again, out of hurt, out of pain, unhealthy lifestyles are being pursued and bad choices are there. There's a community that suffers there as well. And so reconnecting people to the mindset of, number one, they can be an asset as opposed to a detractor to community. But then also one of the things that we're finding out is that we as individuals, our life, our purpose, the reason why we are placed on this plane, this earth, is just to not be self-serving and to look at my four and no more. But most of us have a connection to community. We've got a responsibility to the world around us in order to fuel our life's purpose. And so that's what FreedomWorks is all about, the long and short of it, in terms of the mission and our start. We've been around since 2005. The first place was on 35th and Penn. And in 2019, we relocated. So we moved from a 15 bed opportunity for participants to a new space where we can accommodate up to 155 participants. So that's the long answer.
Great answer. Thank you for that. And so are you operating at capacity right now, or are you looking for more clients, or is there a waiting list?
It has been a miracle through this pandemic that we are very near capacity. I think we've got anywhere from, so we have 6 different program areas. And with those 6 different program areas, we probably have about 12 beds that are vacant, that need occupancy. And so that's what the state of that is. One of the things that's distinct about Freedomworks is that, um, just because you have a pulse, it doesn't mean that you qualify for services here. We really are pursuing individuals who have viewed their past mistakes as a stop sign as opposed to a speed bump. And so we're really trying to, in our intake process, identify highly motivated individuals who value safety and sobriety. And when bumps in the road hit, when turmoil hits, and it will hit, that they're willing to slow down, cooperate by really getting ready to work. Because sometimes, many times, those speed bumps that occur, those are some of the same cycles at root that have been catapulting people off course for some time. And so if they're able to say yes to doing the hard work after experiencing some level of stability, they're setting themselves up for a good opportunity to kind of grow. So
I'm Al McFarlane. This is the Monday edition of Conversations with Al McFarlane. I'm talking with Randy Washington. He's the program director at Freedomworks, a North Minneapolis-based care facility for people that are reentering society. How do you describe the work, the mission, Randy? I said reentry. Is that what's the expansive description?
yeah, so we do serve a population of individuals who are transitioning out of incarceration, and they use FreedomWorks as not a work release address, but a place for them to continue their development and their growth from that space. And then we also have a population of individuals who are working themselves through recovery. And so we partner with intensive outpatient providers that would help. So our level of engagement in that space is to provide the optimal environment and optimal opportunities for individuals who are on their road of breaking free from substance use disorder or any kind of level of addiction, and to achieve some stability from that standpoint. And so there's 5 different distinct kind of opportunities that we have available.
Mm-hmm.
The first one is through a partnership with Hennepin County. It's a board and lodge opportunity, and our purpose is to help men in that space move from instability to a place of stability. And by stability, I don't mean just kind of coasting and there's no issues, but the stability of, hey, we're on the road to securing our own apartment. We're on the road to getting ourselves into a space where we can, instead of being dependent upon um, uh, 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 anyone in terms of government entities, we're placing ourselves in a position because we're building skills for ourselves to be self-sufficient. The second floor that we have is, like I mentioned before, that sponsored lodging with some partners that we have in the community for substance use treatment. And then the third opportunity that we have in our main, again, 2912 building is reentry and aftercare. And that is the staple or the foundation what FreedomWorks is. It is a faith-based opportunity. And so individuals who decide that they want to enter into that program, they're saying that we want to make scripture, we want to make Christian accountability, we want to make Christian service a key part of our life building engagement. And so those individuals are there, moving forward from that space. And then we do have single and 1 bedroom apartments, space areas that are program areas where individuals who are a year sober, who are steady in their employment, they have an opportunity to continue to build some financial equity, and they have the ability to continue to build some independent living skills to, again, catapult themselves into, we've had participants purchase their homes out of that program area. We've had individuals, again, find a more stable apartments or living situations out of that space. And so it's all about, getting someone from point A to point B with a life development focus.
Let me ask you to meditate for a minute, Randy, on the notion recovery.
Mhm.
And we say it a lot, we use it a lot. I don't know that we examine it a lot. And recovery might mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. What does recovery mean, as you describe it, as a program manager, as a service organization? What does recovery mean for a person who's a client, who comes in, who's seeking help? What does recovery mean for the community, for the society? What do you think?
Boy, big question. I definitely want to take my hat off to say that to each individual person, recovery definitely means something different, and so I want to acknowledge that. From a program director space, um, recovery means that the things that used to hold you captive, the things that you used to run to that would spin your life out of control, um, the things that you would run to an item of worship, an item of rescue or submission. You are in a space where you are turning the page on those things, and that you are learning to navigate those triggers. You're learning to navigate those impulses in a way that is life giving and healthy. And that looks very different for each individual. For some individuals, it is um, an act of service. For other, it is continuing with like-minded individuals that lend themselves to ongoing support. For some individuals, it is ministry. There's all kinds of ways or things that are at the end of people's recovery process. But it's really kind of getting a person or ourselves to that space where we realize um, what's been destroying our lives, and then building the skills and the capabilities to move beyond that. And I'll just add, success is service. And so figuring out a way to proactively give back, to proactively engage in the world around you.
And so next then is for the person that walks in your door, seeking, uh, uh, invited by the notion that he or she needs to recover. Uh, how do you see that person? What's going on in his mind or her mind from your point of view as a professional, as a service provider? What does recovery mean to that person? What's their motive and what's their end game?
Yeah, again, it depends on the person. I'll say that every person who picks up the phone and says, "Hey, I need some help, and I'm looking for Freedomworks," just to be quite honest, not all of them are really ready for the work, and so that's really the first piece of the puzzle is evaluating, is enough. Have you gotten yourself to a space where, or are you in a space where you are ready for some significant transformation, some significant life change? Because it is intensive. It is um, there's so much that's tied to the unhealthy use of substances and running to things to fill you up. It's everything from the actual biochemical connections that happen in the brain to what gives you value and worth and esteem for an individual. There's some individuals who before they started using, they were extremely lonely, no friends, no connections, and then all of a sudden, when they start using, the light switch comes on and they've got friends, they've got connections, they've got the esteem of people in a world around them. And that can be very difficult to break it, to break from. So there's lots to that question or to that space. But I would say that fundamental to all of that is you recognize that it's time. You as an individual have said enough is enough, and you're ready to roll up your sleeves and to endure hardness to get the results that you're looking for. And Al, you did ask what's the motivation. I
Hmm.
would say that most people would say a better life. They're sick and tired of being sick and tired. They want something better, more healthy, more stable, more free. They want a better life.
Sustainable, probably as well.
Say it
And
again.
sustainable is the word that comes to my mind.
Absolutely, yes.
And so the last part of that question was the community. How does a community see itself and articulate its own vision for recovery? Can a community be out of control? Can a community be in uh, a, a state of self abuse and self destruction? Can the experiences of individuals be projected uh, on a community level that reflect something about a community? I'm just throwing this out. I don't have an answer. I'm asking for you
Yeah.
to noodle the idea.
My opinion is that within a community, you have sub communities. You've got subcultures within a main culture, and there's a lot of, as it pertains to uh, you can get a subculture that's in a within a main culture that is very toxic, that the values that they represent, that they are using or leaning into for their perception of survival, or their perception of what success looks like, is not healthy, and it is something that's destructive and poisonous. And I think that that is a snapshot of, you can take just about every and any culture, and that would be true of those cultures. And so the challenge is, in my opinion, again, for the majority culture, that main culture, to identify that subculture, to to figure out ways to engage that culture without validating or co-signing, if you will, some of those negative behaviors, but do so in such a way where there's not a shame that's attached, where there's a hopelessness attached, or where, again, I think of that picture, that finger pointing of,
Mhm.
you're the sole root of what's going on or what's wrong. If anything, that does nothing but to reinforce that subculture's exile and negative behavior.
You've used the term do the work, ready to do the work. Randy Washington, what is the work?
Yeah, great question. So, depending on where you engage at Freedomworks in terms of the program space, there are some specific asks that are there, that are indicated, that everyone is aware of when they first show up and they kind of sign in for the covenant agreement. And so, the work can be something as simple as, will you abide by the curfew times? Will you value the space where you're living, in terms of being a space that is free from illicit substances? Will you agree to, uh, um, given the Heisman, if you will, to some of the negative influences that you've had in your life? So that's the broad stroke of what doing the work is. Some of the more specific areas of doing the work would be, if I'm an individual and uh, when I get a large amount of income in my hand, my first um, impulse is to run out to the dope man and buy drugs, because I have some scheme in my mind that's helped me better my life. Doing the work is confronting that impulse and being willing to do something different. Or I'll give you a very real example. Last week on Thursday, I had a conversation with a man who, he was distraught and upset because he and his significant other, his girlfriend, were using together, and he made the choice well, I believe that they had a pact to make the choice together to get sober and to start to try to do things differently, to build their life a little differently. And while he jumped in and did the hard work of kind of starting that process, she is not on that same level and still kind of engaged in the substance use. And where he was distraught was, what do I do? How do I support? And the counsel to him is, you know, uh, you know, when you're on an airplane, the stewardess, when they're giving those flight instructions around oxygen, they say, when those masks drop, you put that oxygen on yourself first, and then you can look around to help somebody else. That's a difficult impulse. That's a difficult work to do for that individual, that man, to not want to get back and to help his significant other, or maybe even to remember the glory days of when they were using together. So that's the difficult work. So it looks different for everyone. It's program structure, of submitting to that, but then it's also those individual areas that kind of pop up that can be triggered by traumas, that can be triggered by just normal patterns that you're into, being willing to rewrite a script there for yourself.
At the community level, the neighborhood level, the society level, uh, are we in a, a game that we cannot win, that has no winning to it? And maybe winning is the wrong word, but here's where I'm going with this. Um, there's on the one hand an argument that supports individuals' personal rights to manage themselves, to be
Mm-hmm.
responsible and accountable in their decision making. I mean, the impact, work, lack of work, business, lack of business, substance abuse or not, smoking or not, getting vaccinated for COVID-19 or not. But the society kind of affords and encourages everyone to make choices, make decisions. On the other hand, the society is loaded. I mean, going at 1,000 miles an hour in things that will distract you and help you to be non productive, and help you to be counterproductive, and help you to fail and even glorify the failure, help you embrace the delusions that make you think you're okay when you are toxic to yourself and to the environment. So the society itself creates and maintains a level of toxicity uh, in how it describes reality that a lot of people, in my view, fall victim to. And what do you think about that? I mean, I could be totally wrong here. I'm just sort of talking, but what is your thought about the where responsibility lies both with the individual and in society? What's the balance? Is there a balance? And is it a situation where all of us have to be somehow holding each other and our collective selves accountable differently?
I think I understand your question. I'll restate it,
If you do,
hopefully.
great, because I'm not sure that I do, but go ahead.
So, if I'm hearing your question correctly, you're saying that there is a mindset that is there that says, let people live and die by their own choices. Let them make their own decisions, and then, there you go. And then the other end of that spectrum is, uh, boy, we need to help everyone, um, no matter where they are in terms of the decisions that they make, in order to look for a general good in society. And so, where do I, or where does Freedomworks kind of fit underneath that paradigm? Is that the question?
I think that what you described as one end of it is really the middle, and the
Okay.
other end of it is the authoritative side that feels it has the power and the right to prescribe or proscribe what is right, what is true,
Okay.
where somebody has appropriated either the power or the control, and that determines. But in the middle is what I think you've described as the end in my mind. Does that make sense to you?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
So, I suppose, I'll have to answer this from my personal perspective and not speak for FreedomWorks. I don't believe that our board of directors or our executive director have um, given voice to that particular question. Um, so what I'll say, and I'll answer from what I've seen work well and what I've seen not work so well.
Mhm.
My perspective is that authoritarian, you're going to do what I want you to do, A, B, and C, without any that doesn't work well. I think people, especially in America, we we got this streak in us where we really value individualism and individual rights, quote unquote, and the opportunity to kind of chart my own course and establish or dictate my own destiny. And so I think that's part of our cultural fabric that I don't think that authoritarianism works well for us in America and in our communities. I do think that also, though, getting ourselves into a place where um, people don't have to make a decision, that they can just live lawlessly, willy nilly, and do so without any kind of supports or consequences. Um, I think that um, lends itself to a lawless society because when that plays itself out, those individuals don't just stay in their circle, they start to hurt other innocent people. A lot of those individuals who are making those choices, if it's not the neighbor across the street, it's individuals' own family members who end up being hurt or harmed by that individual's choices. And so I think as a society, boy, if I had to wave a magic wand, I would say, you know, create opportunities for people who, once they've made choices again, and they are looking for something different, to have some resources, some ability, some safety net for them to grow into the new person that they're trying to become or be. So that's where I'm at.
Okay, but let's go to your personal story, Brother Washington. You know, where are you from? Are you native of Minnesota, or where are you from? And talk about your family. You know, 'cause here's the purpose of the question.
Mm-hmm.
I think we all carry on our shoulders or stand on the shoulders of the people that came before us in our personal biological families and in community. And so I walk with an awareness of the ancestors. Whether you do or not, I don't know. I'm asking you the question.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, what in your lineage brings you to the Randy Washington of 2022? Where does it come from? And how far back do you see it in your spirit, in your mind's eye, and then how far does it allow you to see into the unfolding now, which I call the future? What do you think?
Yes, interesting question. So for me, my the it's a very interesting story. It's a long journey. I'm blessed to be an adopted son to a single man. His name is Melvin Washington. My understanding is that when my brother Paul, who was probably 9 or 10 at the time, started looking at my dad saying, "Hey, Dad," and my dad again, single man, I want a little brother. I want somebody to play with. And my dad was not in a space to um, be looking at having other children or ever, or whatever, from that perspective. And so he being very involved in the adoption care system, he was a director of a child development center in North Minneapolis here, up towards Brooklyn Park area, or Brooklyn Center area. I'm sorry. Somehow they found me. And at that time, I was in a foster home in a housing project in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Um, a little bit of my story of how I got there. I didn't find this out until I was 17 years old. Definitely adjusted differently from that adoption and all of the what I didn't know it was trauma at that time, but I come to now know that it's been described as trauma. But I was 17 years old trying to figure out where's life gonna take me in the future here. What am I gonna be doing with my life? And I thought that the military was gonna be part of that story. I have a scar on my stomach, and the recruiter was asking me, "Hey, what's the scar on your stomach from?" And I had no idea because for as long as I've lived, I just have had that scar. So what happened was they began to contact my dad, and one night I remember getting ready for bed. Went to North Community High School, about to start. Again as this is my junior year. Getting ready to head to school the next day. He comes in with an 8x11 sheet of paper, a sheet and a half full, old typewritten, I believe. And in that, it had my whole life history from birth to the time that he came to get me. And in that story, I found out that I was actually abandoned on a bus in Chicago, and at 2 days old was taken to the hospital, and that's where they guesstimated that I was 2 days old there, and immediately adopted by the Mackeys. And really, all thing I know about the Mackeys is that name. They gave me my name, Randy, and shortly after being in that family, that's where I was rushed to the hospital as an under 2 year old baby with a ruptured intestine and emergency surgery there. And the next thing I read on that sheet of paper was I'm in the foster care system down in Chattanooga. And those are where some of my first memories were from.
Wow.
For me, I describe that time as being kind of the wild, wild west, in that every abuse that is common that people, talk about today, from sexual abuse to emotional abuse to physical abuse. That was a part of my story at that time. And it really had an impact on my character. It had an impact on my mindset. I remember I reflected upon this probably about 10 years ago, and I don't remember coming to this statement, but I remember feeling this. And I'm not sure if it's the spirit of the ancestors or what, but I remember saying to myself, and this is definitely the way that I would act. Um, if anything is going to come forth in my life, it's really up to me, right? And so at that time frame, I'm 4 or 5 years old, and became a very selfish, very manipulative, uh, a survivor, from a trauma informed care standpoint. And so I lived the next probably 4 or 5 years of my life that way. My dad, after he adopted me, I believe I moved up. I remember the day, it was April 16th, and I'm not sure if it was 1979 or 80, but moved up. And boy, I needed a strong Black father in my life at that time who wasn't going to put up with my BS, who was going to be patient with me, but firm with me. And the best gift that I ever could have gotten was to be with him. I believe firmly that if it was not for him, I would be one of the individuals who are hurting the community and hurting families by being engaged in unhealthy and poor choices. So, yeah, he did a phenomenal job. I think at that time it was one of the first opportunities that I've had to really kind of challenge what's right and what's wrong. I remember going to Pilgrim Rest Baptist Church. My dad was a deacon there, and I remember um, wrestling with uh, where's the result of some of my choices, and do I want to be a good person and live these idyllic values, or do I want to continue to lie and cheat and steal and connive and you name it? And I remember, and I believe God honored this. I gave my life to the Lord at that time, and there have been definitely some roller coasters in my spiritual development and growth through that time frame. A number of times of rededication, if you will, um, but that is fundamental to my story: a life in Christ, a life being led by God's Spirit in order to engage a hurting and a dying world, and to really serve other people who were a lot like me, wounded, abandoned, rejected, feeling like uh, if things were going to happen, it's going to be up to me, but not having the resources or the skills to do that in a productive way. So that's a long, windy story about my
It's
life.
a wonderful story, man. It's impressive, and thank you for being willing to share it and for sharing it so powerfully and so clearly. I asked then, have you thought about your biological parents? Have you done anything to connect or to discover the
Yeah,
biology?
great question. I'll share this way. So for my birth father, there's even to this day very little to no grieving or connection or anything related to him, and that's, I mean, whatever, that's just
You
the
know who
truth
he
of the
is?
matter.
You
I
know
do
who he
not
is?
know who he is, no.
Okay.
And then my birth mother, um, I remember, I'm going to share with you, I think, three different encounters or things that have dealt with my mother. uh, I will say that I've always had some resentment or challenges or difficulty with my birth mother. Don't know her, never met her. Um, I will say that I remember in high school, uh, right around the time that I'm sharing what's going on with my life story. I shared with some friends in high school, and one of my high school friends said, "Hey, do you think you'd ever want to try to find your birth mom?" And the answer was immediate. It was quick and it was sharp, and it was basically hell no, right? Uh, I remember after this, so probably another 5 years from that time frame. At that point, I'm married. I've had my first child, maybe second child, and I'm reading this book on discipleship, and has nothing to do with family, nothing to do with connection or anything. But this question emerges in my mind: Hey, what if you meet your mother and your mother needs forgiveness in order to make a spiritual connection, to say yes to a relationship with Christ? Are you willing to forgive her? And at that point, there was a healing moment, and I said yes to that moment and forgave her. A level of healing occurred. Second encounter happened, or this is actually the third now. The third encounter happened where I remember being I used to work for an organization called Treehouse, and we used to take young people on mission trips. And I remember going to West Virginia, and then coming back from that trip, we stopped in a church, I believe, in the suburbs of Indiana. And I remember my head hitting the pillow, and I had the most vivid dream that lasted all of 15 seconds. But in that dream, the church that we were staying at, my mother was the senior pastor there, and she somehow, again, in this quick dream, we connected and reconciled. And the next thing I know, my family and I are have moved there, and we're kind of partners in their work there. And just another level of deep healing. And I woke up the next day and I said to some people that were hosting us, "Hey, is there any chance that the senior pastor of this church is a black woman?" And the answer was no, it's a white guy. So I said, "Oh, okay." So that
Uh,
that ended that.
Boy,
But
that sure would have knocked you out if it was.
yes, it would have for sure.
Yeah.
But the work had been done in my heart. There was a level of healing there. And then I'll just mention the last one. There's a gentleman, a whole um, curriculum, if you will, that's written around authentic manhood, and it really takes the participants through a journey of really discovering what the purpose of manhood is, and how to um, grab a hold of values and perspectives that are going to help you be effective as a male and as a man in society. And a huge portion of that curriculum is about answering mother wounds and having an opportunity to informally process that has been powerful as well. And there's all kinds of other things that have been associated with
I
this.
didn't get that. Answering mother what?
Mother wounds. It's
What does that
answering
mean?
mother wounds. What is mother wounds?
Yeah.
So, from the perspective of the curriculum, everyone has some distinct wounds: a mother wound, a father wound, an all alone wound, and there's one that I'm missing. And what it is that there's a level or a way that you have engaged with your mother or your father that has been disappointing, hurtful, uh, uh, um, negative, it has a negative influence on your life in some way. And the point is to not destroy or shame any of those individuals or entities. It's just acknowledging a truth that we don't do all things well when we cooperate with one another as humans. And so what do you do with that when there's something that's not done well? Many of us don't have a opportunity to process that and to reconcile it. And to the degree that that enslaves you, it's not healthy. It's not positive, and it has an impact on every other relationship that you have. I know it had an impact on the relationship that I had with my wife and my children, my girls. I got two girls at that time, and so um, being able to, and again, this is not deep clinical psychotherapy work, which I definitely think it's a positive thing, but it's an opportunity. It was an opportunity for me to at least begin to acknowledge kind of what those wounds were and to forgive and release and to begin to move forward. And so for me, those all of those areas that I talked about in terms of my mother have been areas of healing and release and forgiveness. And um, those are things that were necessary for me to again get to a space where I was able to and am able to cultivate a more healthy relationship with others and with myself. So
Did you take a military option? You said you thought about military.
I
Did you
did.
do
I
that?
thought about it. I did not. I did not end up going and using the military option. No,
How about training? What did you do after high school?
I went to Northwestern Bible College at the time. Right now, it's University of Northwestern in St. Paul, and got a degree in social sciences with a history emphasis and a Bible minor there.
Let me, this has been a great conversation, man. The time goes so quickly. It's almost an hour already. But let me ask my other colleagues and guests if any has a question or a comment or feedback. I'm sure they all have enjoyed this conversation in the way that I have. Let me ask my brother Greg first. So, Greg, you and I have a family and a lot of great stories. And you're in the same business of providing sober housing. What are your thoughts, impressions, comments, or questions you might have, or comments you may have for Brother Randy?
Yeah, sure. That was uh, awesome, awesome share, Brother Randy. I appreciate. I was glued to the screen. Um, you are uh, one of my new heroes, an example of when we talked about recovery on how to come from a place that of not your choosing whatsoever, and then learn and accept and um, respond to life by forgiveness and and moreover at the highest level forgiveness of the heart,
Hmm.
um, realizing that we don't have to do it in person with anybody in the universe. We can do it through spirituality. We can do it through the Spirit of God, to forgive and to heal, and it's effective, and it becomes actualized in that person's life, even though we may not see it, and
Hmm.
nor is it really our business that the results are what we're looking for. But by forgiving, seeing your mother as as a minister, and actually it wasn't her at all, was less important than the fact that you forgave her in the heart. That's a powerful story.
Hmm.
It's one that in sober housing, like our facility, unlike yours, is more of a place to live and to begin to learn how to behave and overcome life in general, just the small things. You have more services in place at your facility at Freedomworks. Sounds like an awesome place. I do get several of your clients throughout the years. I've gotten them, and I've sent a few of them there too. So it's always been a pleasure to send people there. And I am just very happy for you, and look forward to spending some in-person time with you, because it's fascinating. Your perspective, your generosity of yourself, your earnest endeavor to be living in the truth, and not in words alone, but in deed. And I know, and most of us who are want to have the AA awakening will say it's everything in recovery. To have a spiritual awakening, and that spiritual awakening is knowing the difference between the old man and the new man, and begin to let the old man die in us and allow the new man to grow. And the new man is, that Jesus Christ in us. And as well as I do, is that it's hard to say the name of Christ in places like this, because knees buckle, and people started rebelling for no apparent reason. But the Jesus Christ that I know is love, which is compassion and forgiveness and empathy, and forgiveness, and most of all, overcoming. And I see you as an overcoming warrior, and the service part of your life is apparent, and it's effective. It is even effective in this interview. So one thing I did want to know is that when you look at successes, how long are your programs? I know you have 3 different phases, but do you have a set time on your programs? I'm sorry to run that all together as one, but that was a question I had.
No worries. Thank you so much for those kind words. I do want to say, for the record, this coming Thursday, beginning at 6:30 p.m., we are having an open house. The address is 2912 in Fremont Avenue, but you'll have to come around to the Emerson side to find parking. But all are welcome and invited. We'll give you a kind of we'll do the best we can to kind of give you a snapshot of what we're trying to accomplish here on Freedomworks. And I barely scratched the surface. There's engagements around a community food shelf that we're getting up and running with. And we've got visions around creating employment opportunities and job training here on our campus as well. So show up this coming Thursday, beginning at 6:30 p.m. So then a more direct answer to your question, reentry and aftercare program, individuals have 8 months to complete that. However, there is some flex time. We've had some people who've gone over a year, but generally we're looking at 8 months for that to work through the phases of that discipleship program. The treatment housing that we're working with intensive outpatient partners, we're probably looking at an average of 6 months for those individuals to be in that space as they're kind of working through their addictions. And of course, you have your outliers of individuals who just cruise through. In 2 months, they're in and out. And then, there's some others who, maybe a year or longer working through that. Our new board and lodge opportunity, that's about 8 months long as well, when men get to a space where, again, they slow down, they get an assessment of what skills do they need to work on. They chart a course of how they're going to engage in those skills and to kind of get themselves in a position where they are finding employment or whatever it is they need to do to prepare themselves for their next step. So that's usually about 8 months. And then there's the independent success program, the studio and 1-bedroom apartments. That's a year long that we allow people to kind of be in that space. Wow. So.
This has been a great conversation. Brenda or Dee or Diana, any questions or comments? I have one more.
I got one. I got
Okay.
one. Brandy, are there females in this program?
Yeah,
And-
we are. We're running a pilot program right now in our independent success space. We currently have 3 ladies are there in a women's wing there, and I think we're getting our feet wet in terms of figuring out how to best support women from a recovery and a reentry standpoint. More recovery at this point. We partner with some other agencies that will give us recommendations of, hey, these women are doing well. They've been sober for a year. They are in line with your mission, being highly motivated, valuing safety and sobriety, and are willing to do the hard work. So those are women that we're saying yes to on our campus.
Brenda D, question, comment? Let me close with this. I asked you about family, and that was great what you shared with me. But I'm still imagining then that if you became part of the Washington family, that probably led to a whole new world of family for you. I'm just guessing. I don't know this. So, and I raised the question, if nothing else, to give credit to the Mr. Washington that you described, and to allow you to talk about that family that you're part of now. Is it just the stepdad or the foster parent, or is it the Washington clan?
It's it's the Washington clan.
Yeah.
I words can't express how strong that man is. He's got a story of his own in terms of growing up in Louisiana at 8 years old, deciding, hey, I don't want to stop schooling by the 6th grade, but I want to go live with my dad in Texas. And my dad in Texas was a gruff man. And, the things that he had to go through from that perspective, even to coming up to Minnesota, it's an incredible story in itself. But that man, I don't know how he did it. I've seen some of the working with at-risk populations. I've seen some hard-headed kids that used to act like I used to act. And I thought, oh my Lord, if they were in my, but my dad had to put up with me. Right. And so I'm very grateful. I'll just share this one brief story. I remember when I was off at college, I was newly 18. We're coming up to the the Thanksgiving break. And this was a real battle in my mind. I didn't know where I was going to go for Thanksgiving. Now, I grew up 40 minutes away from where I was going to school, and it's 40, it's highway miles. So this is just in Arden Hills. And I remember picking up the phone and I was talking to my dad, and I said to him, I don't really know where I'm going to go for Thanksgiving, and where do I go? And at that point, he said, boy, you're my son. You belong here. And he's had to re-echo that to me a number of different times, because there's just, our enemy plays all kinds of games with our minds and that kind of thing. So he's been a hero, solid. Even our family down in Louisiana, it was touch and go when I was 9 and 10, but now it's a full embrace. So very grateful.
I'm going to close with a paraphrase of a book I just was reading. Was one of several that I'm reading by a Ghanaian novelist. His name is Ikwe Arma. Brenda hears this every day because I'm quoting him every day, 4 or 5 times a week. But the book I'm referring to is one called Resolutionaries. And I was actually sharing parts of it with my wife, Bobby, last night, going through some of the poignant, powerful statements that I discovered in reading the book. And one that comes to mind out of this conversation was one about developing a way of learning, a way of approaching education as a lifelong process. And in a sense, it was a way of also identifying and creating family, not only in the sense of the traditional bloodline, but in the sense of companionship companionship, meaning people that see that they are heading in the same direction and see that they can support each other in that journey. And that journey is a journey of fulfillment, of empowerment, of enabling people to become, as Greg said, fully self-realized. And one of the phrases that came up, a short one, was a description of learning. Therefore, if learning is bigger than the traditional concept where you got your home life, your school life, your home life, etc., they are positing the notion of education, always knowledge, the pursuit of knowledge as a prime directive, and it's knowledge for the purpose of the development of both individual and society. Guiding principle, we call the principles of Ma'at, the principle of balance and the principle of justice. These two mythic characters in Egyptology, called the Ma'at sisters, represented balance and justice. And through their system, they created a process that allowed people to understand that their home was a school and their school was a home. And they both existed to create, support, sustain unending learning, development, and toward the end of well, I'm trying to think of my words to describe what I read, but maybe I'll leave it right there. How do we arrive at a place where there is perpetual, unending, and fulfillment by learning, and the learning creates an excitement of its own that propels us to always seek to know, and to know with an intent of spreading this notion of justice in the world and of balance in how we live and create community. Well, with that, I want to thank you, Brother Randy, for sharing the conversation. Thank you for the work that you're doing with Freedomworks here in North Minneapolis, reminding people to come check you out this Thursday, 6:30, up at 29th and Emerson Fremont, right?
Yep.
Okay.
On that whole block. Yep.
Okay. Great. And Greg, thank you, brother. Good to see you. Diana, D, and well, for our team here, we'll see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye. End the broadcast. Okay. Hey, man, Greg, what you think? You there? What you think, Greg?